Check 1 2 check. All right, welcome to another Arizona Timeless Tourist live show. We will start in just a few moments. Just waiting for the people at Facebook and YouTube to jump on board. We're going to talk about an awesome adventure the last couple of days. So stay tuned. Don't go away. All right, let's bring that down a little bit. Bring that down. Hope everybody is having a great Saturday night. This is one of those times where I just pop on because we just finished an awesome adventure this week. In the last couple of days, went down about 16 miles from the Mexican border to check out a historic location, and then headed up to beautiful Holbrook, Arizona, where we ran into a snowstorm on the way home. And it was about 35 degrees while we were up there, but had a fantastic time. Had absolutely fantastic time up in beautiful Holbrook. And people are like, what are you doing up in Holbrook? And I'm like, look, there's a lot going on in Holbrook, Arizona, and we're going to cover it on this live, folks. We're going to cover an unbelievable historic area on the southern border. Again, around 15, 16 miles from the Mexican border. And we might even get into giants tonight on the Arizona Timeless Tourist Live. That's right, I said giants. We might talk about that story also. I uploaded the pictures and the video. Let's see if it'll work or not. But tell your friends, tell your family members, tell those from out of town that we are live on Facebook and YouTube at the Arizona Timeless Tourist. All right, how's everybody doing this Saturday evening? Just gave it a few minutes to see if anybody was going to jump on. We don't have a lot of people live, which we normally don't. So if you're on here, throw your name up in the comment section. Let's say hello to each other, and let's try to get some more people on this live. So go ahead and share it. Tell as many people as possible. We're going to talk about Holbrook, that was established around 1881. That town, you know, they talk about Tombstone, the town too tough to die. Doesn't even compare to Holbrook. That's why, tourism and movies, they kind of direct you in the wrong place. Tombstone. I got the sign right behind me. The town too tough to die. What was Holbrook known for in 1881? What was that place known for? It was the town too tough for women, children, and churches. The town too tough for women. Women shouldn't have been there. They say no children and not a church. And it wasn't until, folks, the late 20th century that a church was placed in Holbrook, Arizona. Just remember, it was incorporated in not incorporated. I think it was incorporated in 1917, but it was established in 1881 as a roughneck area. Just checking out some stuff right here. Checking out some stuff on the phone, making sure that the audio works. That's the worst, and the audio does not work. Let's run over to the chat. We got Mark on here. Says howdy from, I'm going to say it wrong, Mark, but I say Casa Grande. Some people say Casa Grande and all that stuff. Yes, I am a transplant to the great state of Arizona. Just over 10 and a half years. Got here, March of 2012. Just to tell everybody that might jump on for the first time, I have traveled over 50,000 miles in the last 5.5 years in the great state of Arizona. Dedicated a lot of my time, effort, and money into investigating some hidden historical gems, not the ones that everybody knows about. I go out to places like Holbrook. There are people born and raised in Holbrook that I was talking to that did not know some of the history that I'm going to talk about. There's a gentleman that I do know that lives close to me who was raised in Holbrook his whole life, and I thought he could take me on a tour of some of these historic places. And he did not know of one, and he left there around 19 or 20 years old. So, we're going to get into Holbrook, Arizona. We're going to get into the snowstorm that I ran into. This is yesterday, folks. We got back yesterday. That big snowstorm that hit Flagstaff. Go check out my TikTok channel at the Arizona Timeless Tours. I uploaded 2 videos, one tonight, standing on the corner in that beautiful Winslow, Arizona. And then before that, we got like 80,000 hits last night on the snowstorm that I ran into. And I say in the video that I am coming back from beautiful Holbrook, Arizona on the video. And they're like, well, we see trees. That's not Holbrook. I'm coming from. So I'm going from Holbrook and videoing the awesome history of the awesome location of Holbrook, Arizona. And I'm coming back. So we're about 25 miles getting back to the great Gilbert, Arizona, where it's going to be 60 degrees at 6 o'clock in the evening, or 58 degrees to be on point at 6 o'clock in the evening. We left this place at 5 a.m. and we got back at 6 p.m. Unbelievable time, but it took 3 hours to get up there, and it took about 4 hours and 40 minutes to get back because of that snowstorm. People were just sliding all over the place. Accidents everywhere, highway patrol everywhere, but our lane going down, I had my buddy Scott with me who did a fantastic job white knuckling it all the way down to Payson, where it was snowing pretty good in Payson. They didn't have the accumulation 50 miles north had, but 5 miles outside of Payson, it turned into the desert again, completely clear of snow and rain. It was really unbelievable to see. Going through 55 miles of snow, thinking that we weren't going to make it down. I truly thought we weren't going to make it down from that area. I just got reception on the old cell phone, called the wife and said, look, it doesn't look like I'm going to make it down. Now, my wife is not happy with the fact that I'm just getting over cancer about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and now I'm stuck in a snowstorm that I might be staying over in a car on the side of the road if we slide off or if they just stop the traffic completely. But praise be to God, we got down. I did a lot of praying. We got down off that mountain, off the 87. I think it was the 260 that we're on. The snow was just unbelievable on. Locals say Grand versus Grande. Yeah, but I'm a native, and so I don't get too offended. The only reason I know people do get extremely offended that live there, I posted a video about 2 years ago about the neon sign park. I think that neon sign park is pretty cool. When I first put it out on TikTok, it got like 2,000 hits in a 24-hour period. It wasn't going to go anywhere. And then the battle started on how I pronounced it. And by the end of the week, if you go look at it, by the end of the week, we had 54,000 views on that video because people just couldn't believe it. Jesse, how is doing, buddy? Just talking about the snowstorm yesterday, how my wife wasn't really happy at just getting over this sickness, and 5 weeks later being stranded up on the 260 for a minute. But we got down again. Praise be to God, we got down. So we're going to talk about Holbrook. We're also going to talk about another location on the southern border, about 15 miles from the Mexican border, that that most people have no clue about. I will say this. The historical marker was placed there in 1991. I will date myself and say I graduated high school in 1991. Yes, folks, I am 50 years old and I look every day over. So, yeah, that historical marker. And the crazy thing is, if you want to learn a lot about the great state of Arizona or anywhere you live, go to the historical marker section. I belong to the Texas Historical Marker Facebook page. I love it. I spent 4.5 months in Texas. I think I've posted at least 16 historical markers that I came across. At least 25 I have under my belt, but I posted like 16 really cool historical markers in Texas that got like 200 to 300 views. And I'm going to start, or somebody else, please start a historical markers for Arizona. I haven't seen that yet on Facebook. I know Facebook's for the oldies, and I'm one of those oldies. So if they haven't, then I will start it. I just don't like to be over a Facebook page that doesn't really say, that isn't the Arizona Thomas Stewart. I just really don't have time for it. But historical marker databases are where you want to go. And the Arizona database is fantastic. It's added to all the time. And a couple of months prior to the cancer diagnosis that I got, I found two really unbelievable ones. One way down south and one way up about 25 miles east of Holbrook off of the 40. And I really want to get to one, and I conquered the one down south. So let's talk about it. Without further ado, let's bring her up and see what we're talking about here. Let's go to the graphics section here. I took this picture of the Jeep by that. No, I'm at the wrong place. I jumped a gun there. Oh, no. All right. Are you kidding, Dean? Are you kidding? You only did one picture. Well, we're going to have TikToks on it, but this is the location. Look at the 9mm shots there through that 1991 historical marker. So we're talking it's like 30 years old, right? Or 31 years old now. And it's damaged unbelievably off the side of the road, off of, I believe it's the 83. You take the 82 off of Interstate 10, about 25 miles south of Tucson, 82 for like 30 miles. And then you take a right on, it's right where the Border Patrol kind of headquarters area is at, 82 right for 16 miles. And you come to this location here. I'm just going to scoot through to see if I downloaded any other pictures of this location. I can't believe I didn't do this. Let me go through my notes here and see why I did not do this. I don't know why. All right, what I'm going to do is I got it because it's really hard to read it. This is the John Ward Ranch. Again, this marker was placed there in 1991 by the people who lived in the local area. Again, this is relatively 16 miles from the Mexican border. Let me read what the historical sign says on it and why it's an awesome place for me to go and stand and be at, because I've covered other portions of what we're going to talk about a year ago when I was at Fort Bowie, if that gives you a clue. It says here, the Arizona pioneer Johnny Ward established a ranch here in 1858. In 1861, Indians kidnapped his Mexican stepson, Felix Ward. Army officers assumed the local eastern Chiricahua Apaches were responsible, leading to the infamous conflict between Lieutenant Bascom and Cochise. Okay. The ranch was also the site of a blacksmith and a wheelwright shop a mining headquarters, and a store. Finally, a produce farm before it was abandoned in 1903. Okay, that's what the John Ward historical marker reads with all these gunshots in it. The important part here is it was established in 1858 and it was finally abandoned in 1903. And then what happened in 1861 on this very spot where I am standing, where the road is running through it, right on the Mexican border, because back then, this is just, this spot is really historical, folks. If you get a chance to get there, look it up on the database, the John Ward Ranch. Again, it says here in 1861, Indians kidnapped his Mexican stepson, Felix Ward. Now, jump ahead in 1861. All right, a Lieutenant Bascom is going to go to a place that's now Fort Bowie. On Fort Bowie, there is a historical marker, and I did a TikTok on this if you ever want to go and check it out. The exact location they believe it to be at. They wanted to have a talk with Chief Cochise at the time and Lieutenant Bascom, and it was going to be a peaceful talk. And so they had Cochise come down with a few of his warriors and a few of the females in Cochise's family, because this was going to be a peaceful talk, right? And what happened is Cochise came down peacefully, but Lieutenant Bascom, he was coming to talk to Cochise about this kidnapping of this young 12-year-old Mexican boy Felix Ward, and he believed that Cochise Apaches were responsible for this, and they were not responsible. But when it ends up happening on that place at Fort Bowie that you can walk through today, is that Lieutenant Bascom forcibly detains Cochise and his crew. Cochise cuts out the back of the tent, runs off, is shot at, gets nicked up on his way out. But a lot of his warriors and his family are held behind by Lieutenant Bascom, and then the standoff takes place. What happens at that point is it sparks the Apache Wars. Right then and there, in 1861, at this farm, where a 12-year-old Felix Ward is taken by a totally different group of Apaches, sparks the Apache Wars a couple days later at what's now Fort Bowie. So if you haven't been to Fort Bowie, get down to Fort Bowie. There is a historical marker there where the tents were set up, where Cochise was held, where he, escaped out the back, was shot at, got out. Unfortunately, it didn't go well with the people that were left behind, because Cochise took a couple of the individuals from that camp and held them hostage. Cochise took his family members and his warriors hostage, and it did not end well for either side. Nobody made it out alive on either side, hostage-wise. But it all started at this location where I'm looking at you through my sunglasses and my little hat on because I'm bald as an eagle. And it's freezing. And it all started right there. And again, that historical marker wasn't put up until 1991, the year Dean graduated high school over 31 years ago. And it's unfortunately been shot at. I do not know why. There's no conflict with what that says on that sign. It is by a burial site. There's a burial site there that's inside the rock. That could have something to do with it. So my recommendation would be, if they replaced the historical marker, move it down the road. The area is like 50 to 60 yards where you can pull off to the left in your vehicle coming from Phoenix. Take that marker and go down a little bit farther and place it and get it away from the final resting place of a few people. I don't know if that's why it was like that. Even says on the historical database that, let's see here. What does it say? It does say it here. It's close to Patagonia, Arizona. I stopped through there. I don't know what's going on in that town. It was a sleepy town, so I'm not really sure. If you know the history of Patagonia, Arizona, let me know. Yeah, it says here more about this marker. Marker is damaged with what appears to be bullet holes. It doesn't appear to be bullet holes. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 significant bullet holes through this, and I do not know why. But anyhow, that's a pretty significant spot. What happens here sparks the Apache Wars, and the Apache Wars take many, many lives. There is no more trying to get along with each other for a decade. And it all starts at this ranch right here in 1861, the John Ward Ranch. I thought I would have downloaded more pictures here. I apologize of the area, but I didn't. I didn't download more pictures. That's a shame. Get down there, check it out. I drove down there. I think it was 169 miles from the house. It took roughly a little over 2 hours. You're roughly 49 miles from Tombstone. So if you want to stop at that town, too tough to die. Yeah. Stop by. I got plenty of TikToks on Tombstone if you want to go check it out. Plenty of YouTube videos on Tombstone. Go check them out. So that was a spot that we stopped at, and I stopped at about 4 days ago. It was my first major trip after cancer, after my final chemo 5 weeks ago. That was the trip that I took. Yesterday, we took a trip, and my buddy Scott drove, which was greatly, greatly appreciated because it was the last destination that I think I needed to get to. There was 2 in southern Arizona, 1 conquered there at the Ford, at the Ward Ranch, and then Holbrook. Holbrook was it. And I knew that that 2 hour and 49 minute, 179 mile drive wasn't going to really suit me too well. So he drove. So we left at 4 a.m. and we headed up there. Folks, people, they prop up this sign behind me right here. They prop up Tombstone, but they got nothing good to say about Holbrook. And Holbrook, the history that's in Holbrook defeats Tombstone. All right, Tombstone's known for what? The OK Corral in October of 1881. And then it's got all of its characters from the shootout there. It's got the Clanton and the McClarys, right? It's got, of course, the Earps and the Earp brothers. You got the famous, right, Doc Holliday, right? Who's credited with all of these takeouts of people with his weapon, that he was this deadly shooter, which, folks, it's coming soon. The real Doc Holliday story, the biographies that I've read about from the historians in Arizona and across the Southwest on the real Doc Holliday, and it doesn't come close. But we'll get into that another time. But that's why Tombstone is Tombstone, right? And then the 2 major motion pictures made about it. Holbrook has the real deal. Too tough. Not too tough to die. Too tough for women. Shouldn't be women. Shouldn't be children. And there shouldn't be a church. And there wasn't a church for a really, really long time. Not until the beginning, over a decade into the 20th century. And it's established in 1881. So, that place was unbelievable. It had a lot of people that were involved in the Pleasant Valley War. And we call the Pleasant Valley War the Tewksbury-Graham feud, one of my favorite things to study up on, the bloodiest feud in U.S. history. They have TikToks on that, folks, and go check them out. Let me roll over to the chat because I'm all over the pictures here. I'm so glad you're back. Trisha Benning, good to see you. Where is this? Marie, are you saying what? I'm not sure. Anyhow, Jess, if you can ask, what is it we're looking for here? Let's jump into the next site though. Let's go into Holbrook again. Really established. Now, of course, there were Native Americans living there in long thousands of years before. So I just want to put that up front because people are going to hammer me on this. It was established as a town in 1881. So let's run over. Oh, I'm missing stuff. Where is this marker? There we go. I've been to Fort Bowie. Awesome. Fort Bowie. The marker is located off of the 82. So you would get off at the 83. You go down below Tucson about 25 miles, and it's the 83, exit to the 83. You take that for 25 miles, and then the 82, you turn right on the 82. It's right in front of the Border Patrol facility. for 16 miles. And it's right down that road there. Again, if you look up the Arizona historical markers, John Ward Ranch, it'll give you the exact directions. But those are the best I can give you at this point. Okay, so let's bring up the next location here. Let's go to the graphics. I'm going to give you a little bit of something. We might have time. I don't know if we're going to talk about this tonight. I might dedicate a show Sunday to this. This is there's a fort that was established there, a camp that was established there during the Civil War time frame, but it wasn't for the Civil War. It was to protect people from Apache raids in the local area. There was a place called Casablanca in the 1850s that were established before the fort was there. There are some ruins to this place called Casablanca in the back. What they found there is an absolute amazement. This is why I went. I did not go for the reason of the fort. I think there should be another historical marker for Casablanca there for what they found there. And what they found there was the remains of a giant. And I've studied giants in the land. I've studied them biblically, and I've studied them off the books on stuff that books that have been written and well documented, especially after the Civil War, of giants that were found when people were farming their areas. The great mounds that Thomas Jefferson talked about, they weren't too far from Monticello. But we're going to get into that. But a giant, a 12-foot giant was found near this marker. And about, I would say, a couple of football fields behind this marker was the original Casablanca. And we're going to get into that. And folks, if I don't get into it tonight, we're going to get into it on Sunday. So come on back. I will post on Facebook when we're going to go back live again here. Let's move over here to let's just do this really quick, because while we were in Holbrook, I stopped here. And I had to take this picture. I had a picture taken next to it. They have a lot of classic cars. It's the Wigwam Resort. Yeah, the Wigwam Resort. Now, a lot of people have heard about this. You know, the movie Cars, of course, stops at the Wigwam Resort. And I believe that there were 7 total Wigwam resorts throughout the United States. Starting in the 1950s, like this one here. This was Wigwam. Let me bring up something really quick. This was Wigwam Village Motel number 6. That's the original name for it. That's what people call it. Oh boy, I got my buddy Jeff is calling in. Hopefully all this is going well. Hopefully he's not calling because you can't hear me well. But anyhow, it's this is the Wigwam Village Motel number 6. Why? I did not realize that there were 7. I'm like, why is it named number 6? So I went home and did some research and found out that there were 7 of these places. And there are 3 that actually still remain today. One of them is right there in Holbrook. The other one is in the great state of Kentucky, believe it or not. And I believe Kentucky was the very first one that was put in sometime in the late 1930s. And this gentleman put this one in, and from what I read, he put in these jukeboxes that you put a dime in, and you got 30 minutes of music in the 1950s. And that money that was placed in there, he took out and sent it to the guy in Kentucky that started the original Wigwam Villages. And he sent him that money for the rights to open this one. So that was pretty cool. And so we went there. This place is pretty awesome. It's a semicircle there, and it's always sold out from what I know. The office was closed because there were no openings. There were no vacancies at the Wigwam when I was there the other day, and it was cold. It was a high of 47. The wind was whipping that day. But I said to my buddy, I said, I can't believe there's a bathroom in there. But I looked up. There is a bed. There is a sink. There is a restroom and a shower inside these things. And that amazed me because they don't look too big. They don't look too big at all. But again, this one was established in 1950. The family brought it back in the 1980s to bring back the old Route 66 stuff that Holbrook is doing a great job with. Old restaurants, old hotels are coming back. But the family reopened it somewhere around 1988. And it's a great place to go and to spend the night. But call ahead. Call to the Wigwam Village Motel number 6 in Holbrook, Arizona, ahead to make sure that they have one of their little teepee things available for you to stay in, because a lot of times they are sold out. So a really cool spot. You know what? We hit this just before we left. We probably shouldn't have stayed here for the 20 minutes that we did, because we got caught in that snowstorm 25, 30 miles outside of Holbrook yesterday. And boy, it was white knuckling all the way down for 55 miles into Payson, and didn't think we were going to make it down, truly and honestly. Let me take a quick break here and grab something. I will be right back, folks. All right, so before I get into the other property, because I think I'm going to have to upload the picture, because it doesn't want to come up here when I need it to come up. But here we are, standing on the corner in Winslow, Arizona. Such a fine sight to see. It's a girl, I've always wanted to get there. Now, what's wrong with this picture for those of you who have stood on the corner in Winslow, Arizona? Does anybody see the problem with this particular picture yesterday of us going there? We beat the snowstorm to Winslow because it got Winslow. We got into Winslow and it was 52 degrees. We left Winslow and it was 39 degrees, and we were there for an hour and 25 minutes. So what's wrong with this portion of standing on the corner in Winslow, Arizona? Anybody? Let's go to the chat section. And yes, Jesse, I think Sunday we're going to talk about the Giants. We're going to dedicate it a whole show to the Giants in that Casablanca area. If you want to Google it or look up the information before I get to it, you can. But we're going to go with the Giants on Sunday. And maybe we'll do it, let's see here. No, what? Maybe we'll do a Saturday show. Let's go with Saturday show. I will post it on Facebook when we go live to talk about the Giants. Let's see here. The problem with this picture here is this. Every picture I've ever seen standing on the corner in Winslow, Arizona, behind you see that white. That normally has a mural and a glass on it. So that truck, that flatbed slowing down to take a look at me, that right there is a reflection. You can see a girl in there, and then you can see the reflection from the wall. And it looks like something happened to the wall where they had to replace it. And of course, that's when I got down there to check it out. But I finally made it to this place. It was about 30 miles, 20, I'll take it back, 25 miles from Holbrook on Interstate 40. We drove up there because this is what I've always wanted to do. Let me post a picture of what I wanted to get there, standing on that corner. And I believe this is it. Yeah, there's Dean standing on the corner there in Winslow, Arizona. You can see I got my hat on, especially now that I'm bald. I got the jacket on, hands in pockets. At this point, it's in the 40s and the wind is whipping. it is cold in Winslow yesterday. Definitely cold. But I had a great time. I've always wanted to go and stand on this corner, and I finally checked it off my bucket list after 50,000 miles of traveling in this state, never making it to Winslow, Arizona, which is a shame. Right across from there was a museum. We went into the museum. The people in there could not have been nicer. Three ladies running it. It was absolutely free, donation-based museum on the history of Winslow and the history of Beale and the Camel Corps, which I have done a lot of research on. The Camel Corps that came across in 1858 for that wagon road, and I've read a couple of books. I'm rereading them because after going through cancer, you get that chemo brain where you kind of lose a lot of the stuff that you had in that brain on all these places. So even prior to going to Winslow and to Holbrook, and I've studied months on end this stuff, I forgot 90% of what I studied. So I had to get my notes back out, and it was like relearning this whole process all over again. But finally checked off the bucket list there in Winslow. If you get there, I mean, you got to do it. Some people say they can't find it, which I can't understand because it's right in the middle of town. It's mostly where everybody is parked. But that day, there was only like 4 or 5 total people there. You can get there, take your pictures. It wasn't the height of the season. So great spot to get over and to check out there in Winslow, Arizona. So this is the whole shot. Again, that white spot, that white is the mural and everything else that I wish was there. You can go look at old pictures of it. Unfortunately, it just wasn't there the day I got there yesterday. So yeah. What I did not upload and what I'm going to try to upload is as I talk. So as I speak to you, I'll be looking in this, but we're going to go to this like 4 terabyte card that I got and try to find a picture. So stand by and let's see if I don't know if it's going to let me do this. Well, my it is going to let me do it. I know I got a picture of something and I don't know why I didn't download it for the show. This is not good production right here. I don't see it either. Man, I can't believe I don't have a picture of it. Let's go. Let's go to down. Let me look one more spot here in my download section and see if I just didn't pull it over. Anyhow, anybody has any questions why I roll through this, let's just do an Arizona Thomas Tours commercial and say that on 1 November, we started the Florence, Arizona 90-minute walking tour. So if you get that scroll that's going down the bottom has my email on it, deanb7010@gmail.com. We do them 7 days a week. We can do them 7 days a week, but in my condition, I can only do one a day. So you want to sign up for that, hit me up at that email when you want to go. Makes a great, family coming in for Thanksgiving. Makes a great Christmas gift. As I keep wandering through these pictures, trying to find a picture that I don't understand why I did not upload prior to the live here. Get a hold of me at deanb7010@gmail.com. Help Arizona Thomas Tour stay in business, folks, by signing up for the historic You Will Not Be Disappointed Florence, Arizona tours. I had to turn down like 3 or 4 of them while I was sick. I apologize for people that I know I got back to everybody on why I couldn't do it. All right, well, I guess I just don't have a picture. So we're going to just talk about the next location. Well, just let's bring this back up. Let's cancel this out. All right. We're going to talk about the Bucket of Blood Saloon. The story is, folks, it used to be called, I wrote it here, Terrell's Cottage Saloon. Terrell's Cottage Saloon. And it was, I believe, built in 1888, from what I read there on the side of the building. Now, what was cool, and what I love to see is there was a big sign that says, "Help save the Bucket of Blood Saloon." go to the Historical Society, which is the old courthouse. It's absolutely free of charge, and that's one of the best museums I've been to in the state is the Holbrook Historical Society Museum that's in the old late 1800s courthouse. And it says, go to the courthouse and donate today. Help save the bucket of blood. And I'm going to just read it here. The Terrell's Cottage Saloon was a popular cowboy gathering place, according to local lore, because I've read a lot about this Bucket of Blood Saloon. So I'm going to emphasize according to local lore. Okay. A gunfight took place in 1891 where two men were murdered. There was so much blood spilled on the floors that it looked like a bucket of blood. And hence the saloon was renamed the Bucket of Blood. I don't know. We do know that it was Terrell's Cottage Saloon forever. We don't know about the story to be true or not. It's kind of like the story of the Apache Death Cave. We want to believe that the Apache Death Cave story is true, right? But 5 years plus of studying Arizona history, and you're like, wow, a lot of Southwest history, not just Arizona, maybe the territory of New Mexico and stuff like that, add that in. And what used to be Mexico, the Sonoran area back in the 1850s before the Gadsden Purchase and all that stuff. A lot of stories on individuals have been embellished, and it's not the individual's fault. It's the historians afterwards' fault. Like Doc Holliday, like the shootout at the OK Corral, all the Tombstone stuff. It's very embellished because the two major motion pictures. But I will say this, Tombstone is always on TV. But if you want to like a real, like get into somewhat of a historical accuracy on Tombstone in a movie, you want to see the one done by Kevin Costner. I think it's not on TV enough because it would run over 3 hours with the commercials. You can get an hour and 45 minutes in on Tombstone. But Wyatt Earp with Kevin Costner, much, much, much more accurate than Tombstone, Arizona. Everyone quotes Tombstone. Everyone loves to watch Tombstone. Watch Wyatt Earp. That would be my recommendation. Yes, it is slow at the beginning. And yes, you know, people don't like really historical facts, but that's close to it. So when we go back and we look at the Bucket of Blood Saloon, they're trying to save it, which is near and dear to my heart. There was also a store next door to it that they're trying to, save that too. They're trying to open it, and man, that would be awesome. Open the Bucket of Blood Saloon as a working saloon. Open the store, the store. I don't know if these would actually just be museums or actually places we can go grab a cold cactus cooler from the Flintstone times to something from the store next door. But I think that's awesome that they're trying to save it. Again, it was built. It was opened in 1888. 1891 is supposed to be that famed shootout in there where there was so much blood on the floor that they renamed it the Bucket of Blood. The street name down that road is the Bucket of Blood. So that brings people. There are a lot of Bucket of Blood saloons across the United States. In the Southwest, if you look it up. So that was a cool spot. I went there, took pictures of that. I can't show you, unfortunately. The history is pretty cool. And then right across the street is the historic train depot. And I'm going to tell you what, the trains that are rolling through Holbrook, if you live in Holbrook, you know this, man, they ain't slowing down. Like here in Gilbert, they slow down through these crossings. I mean, they still coming through. They're still yanking the horn, and they're not like, they're flat out at top speed going through Holbrook. And we were standing right near those tracks, and we were there filming, I want to say for about 25 minutes, and 2 trains came through. And when we headed out of there, a 3rd train was coming through, and these were some long stinking trains. But what is so cool about that historic train depot? Why would I go over there? Why is it still standing today? And I wrote down a few notes that I just want to make sure that I'm not skipping over anything here, folks, when I'm talking to you. But it's the Atlantic Pacific Railroad Depot, and I got it written down right here because I'm scattered from this chemo stuff. In 1883, it was built, And why it's kind of famous to me is there's two things. The Commodore Perry Owens thing that happened September 4th, 1887, which we'll get into. And when Geronimo was finally captured or surrendered, whatever way you want to put it, in 1887, that particular, in 1886, when Geronimo surrendered, not Geronimo, but a lot of his warriors were brought to that Holbrook station. So were brought to the Atlantic Pacific Railroad Depot in Holbrook in 1886 and put aboard trains at that depot and sent off to Florida, set off to the fort in Florida where they would spend their remaining days. And later on, of course, Geronimo would be sent there, and then he would be finally put, I believe, in Oklahoma around Fort Sill there. He would be laid to rest. But he was shipped off to Florida too. But in that depot, they brought those Apaches from all the way down in the southeastern portion of the country, and they brought them all the way up to that famous railroad depot that still exists today, boarded the train right there and sent off to Florida in 1886. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to get up there and tell the story of that. And the other one was the big shootout at the Blevins home, which is right across the street from the depot. I mean, right on the next street, you turn right, and there's a huge sign, which is, when I found out that this place actually existed still, that it wasn't knocked down and rebuilt, it was, it's been re-sided and added onto, because now it's part of a senior citizen center on both sides of the road. So senior citizens now live in the old Blevins house, which is a little bit longer. It's much longer. But the original portion of that cottage is there. And they got a sign that you can barely read. They need a new sign. But it's right above, huge wooden sign that says the Blevins house. And below it, the chain link fence is a historical sign, has nothing to do with the Blevins shootout in 1887. But it has to do with the Camel Corps and Lieutenant Beale in the 1858 expedition across Arizona and into California for that famous wagon road. And it came right through there. So the road that's right in front of the famous Blevins house that's paved now was the original part of Route 66, first of all, in 1926? I'm taking a guess, and I think I'm right. 1926 is when Route 66 opened up, and I believe in the late 1870s is when the Interstate 40 came through Holbrook and pretty much destroyed the town because it just bypassed it. But old Route 66 around 1927, old Route 66 is put in there, so that road has become a lot. So in 1858, it's the Camel Road. Let me make sure. Let me see if I wrote down the exact year that the Route 66 came through there, instead of taking a guess here. I know I wrote it down somewhere. Yep, right here. The historic Route 66, which runs through Holbrook, was completed in 1926. So the road ran through Holbrook right there in front of the Blevins house in 1926. Now it's in 1858, Camel Road, 1926, Route 66. A really unbelievable historic site right there. It's right across from the train depot. But I've done a lot of study on that Camel Corps that came through there. And there are a lot of signs in Winslow for the Camel Corps and for the road that went right through Winslow, Arizona. If you haven't studied up on that, I haven't done a show on that, study up on it. There's some book recommendations. If you think that's a show that I should just dedicate an hour to, just let me know in the comment section, which I'm going to roll over to right now and make sure I haven't missed a... Did they paint over the mural in Winslow? I'm not too sure because I've only been to Winslow once, so I'm not sure what mural you're talking about. Not too sure. The windows are covered. Man, I'm missing out, Jesse, because I was not looking at the live chat. Okay, let's talk about the famous shootout at the Blevins home that still stands. Again, senior citizen home. They probably get plenty of people coming there. Again, there is a historical marker. I wrote it down. Let me read it to you really quick. Historical wagon road marker located on Joy Nevins Avenue. So it's right on the other side of the train depot, which reads as follows. The monument marks a segment of an early road across northern Arizona following the 35th parallel. The Transcontinental Survey. The route involved the route involved from several pathfinding expeditions. Lieutenant Whipple, that Fort Whipple is named after. He started it out from 1853 to 1854, doing a railroad survey, and then Lieutenant Edward F. Beale in 1857 military experiment using camels for transport, and the wagon road constructed by Beale in 1858 and concluded in 1859. That's what the historical wagon road marker says. Now, I haven't done a lot on Whipple. He was kind of the first man through the 35th parallel for the railroad that would come through there much later, and then which would really put Holbrook on the map in 1881. The town of Holbrook is actually named after a railroad engineer, but we'll get into that some other time. So he comes, but the 1858 expedition of that wagon road to widen that area out by Lieutenant Beale and his camels, it's really extraordinary. They should have figured the camel thing out a lot earlier, and they wanted to. There were people in the 1840s, late 1840s, early 1850s that were trying to petition Congress and the transportation, the federal transportation at the time that was run by a guy named Jefferson Davis. Jefferson Davis is really responsible for getting the money secured for that first expedition across the ocean to gather up camels. And what Jefferson Davis would play in the Civil War part, but he was the head of that department, and he played a huge role. And the camels were unbelievable. The camels, folks, could put anywhere from 600 to 800 pounds on them, 600 to 800 pounds, where it would take 4 mules to be able to pull 600 pounds. And, mules pulling wagons that got stuck in mud when it rained. No. The camels holding 600 to 800 pounds would walk through mud with no problems at all. They performed so outstanding. Lieutenant Beale thought, these smelly animals that were spooking the mules and the horses. The mules and the horses looked at the camels and they were spooked. And the people that came, the troops that were out there, were like, these suckers stink and they look funny. There's no way that this is going to happen. And Lieutenant Beale had that same attitude prior in 1857 and 1856, prior to leaving on that expedition. He had the same attitude towards the camels. And then if you read his diary at the end, Beale could not say enough unbelievable, outstanding things about the camels, saying that if you had a couple more camels, you can get rid of every one of these horses and mules because they can't even come close to competing with the camels. Not even close. They had races back and forth before the expedition started, and the camels they beat the mule teams by over 24 hours, 24 plus hours with more weight on them. The mule teams made it. You won't believe at a flat speed how quick a camel can run in 1 mile. It is truly unbelievable. We will get into that on another show. But that is one of the main reasons I went to Holbrook, is to see that camel road, to see that historical marker, and to stand there and say, wow, they came through here in 1858 and they were widening out this road. And there's so much history to this. I mean, Lieutenant Whipple came before. Here comes Lieutenant Beale. He makes 2 expeditions through with the camels, and that road is preserved. Later on, it becomes historic Route 66, and then in the and then in the late 1970s, it becomes part of Interstate 40. Really an awesome story there. All right, so I do got a picture of this next thing. Let's see. I'm in the chat, but I'm gonna roll over to the captions really quick here to the graphics and go into boom right there. That's the wooden sign, says the Blevins house. It's not like sun was reflecting off of it. It's just, I think this is what he was talking about, the windows covered maybe. But this is a senior citizen center now on both sides of the roads. One of their buses came through while we were recording on the road. But this is the old Blevins house. I wonder if they know what happened inside of this house right here. That dealt with the sheriff there, the Commodore Perry Owens. And let me show you a picture of this guy, because this is the most famous picture of the Commodore Perry Owens. This is not what he looked like when he was sheriff of the county here. But this is what everybody knows the Commodore Perry Owens to look like right here. This is the most famous picture of this guy. He took this years before ever becoming an elected official or sheriff of anything. He went in and had this picture taken. And man, this picture is everywhere. It was all over the courthouse. It was all over Holbrook. It's all over the books that you read on this place. You'll always see this picture of the Commodore Perry Owens. I went to his gravesite. It's in the Citizens Cemetery in Flagstaff, Arizona, right across from the mausoleum area that they have there. It's right there. It's chained, so it sticks out. He was buried there. We did a short TikTok video. If you want to go check out more of the history of the Commodore Perry Owens, that's where you would go. Let's talk a little bit about the Blevins house. It was built in 1885, and again, it was located at the Joy Nevin Avenue and 2nd Street. And a famous thing happened here on September 4th of 1887. The sheriff, Commodore Perry Owens, confronted Andy Blevins. Andy Blevins was also known as Andy Cooper because he was wanted for murder in Texas. So he changed his name from Andy Blevins to Andy Cooper. But Andy Blevins, he was a member of the Hash Knife Gang, who was all over Holbrook. That's why Holbrook was no place for women, children, and a church. The Hash Knife Gang outfit was out there by the hundreds in Holbrook in the late 1880s. He was a member of the Hash Knife Gang, and he was wanted for murder. And then the shootout resulted in the deaths of 3 members of the Blevins clan. It was in the it was pretty unreal. So Andy Blevins, known as Andy Cooper, he had a warrant out. Okay. And so the Commodore Perry Owens is going to go by himself with his shotgun on him and his sidearm. And he's going to do this all by himself. Now, Andy Blevins is no joke. Andy Blevins just came back from a couple of days ago, and he bragged about this when he re-entered Holbrook, okay, in the late a week before he arrives in September. He's involved in one of the highlights of the Tewksbury-Graham feud of the Pleasant Valley War. And I did a huge thing, and I went to the original cabin that was located on Cherry Creek in Pleasant Valley. He was holding down the Tewksburys in this cabin for over 10 days. And what they were doing is they were shooting at the cabin, holding up women and children and men that were in the cabin. And then prior to the shootout, they laid an ambush and killed John Tewksbury and his buddy and left them for dead. And then when the people in the cabin were trying to go out and see why were these gunshots ringing out, the Graham brothers and Andy Blevins, Andy Cooper, were up, hiding out and shooting for 10 straight days at this cabin, keeping the inhabitants of the cabin locked down. And then finally, somebody rode off in the middle of the night for miles and miles and went to the local sheriff's office and brought the sheriff back so they could get out. By that time, Tom Graham and John Graham and Blevins and his brother, they disappeared, and nobody ever really nailed them for it. But when Andy Cooper went back into town on the 4th of September, or actually on the 3rd of September of 1887, he was bragging to everybody what he did in Pleasant Valley to the Tewksburys and how he took out a Tewksbury and his buddy out near their ranch. So this guy was bad news, wanted for murder in Texas. It didn't go well. So the sheriff moseys up to the Blevins house. Let's go back to the Blevins house. Moseys up to this location right here, to the Blevins house. It still stands there today at Holbrook. And he says, he goes up, he knocks on the door, says, I need to see Andy Blevins. They're like, no. And they try to shut the door. He doesn't know this little cottage at the time is like 650 square feet at the most. It has women, it has children. There are 9 people, I believe, inside this. A lot of women, a lot of children. And then, of course, Andy Blevins, his brother, his younger brothers, they're all inside of the structure. And when he shuts the door, the Commodore Perry Owens steps back and he takes that shotgun and he shoots through the door. And on the other side of that door is Andy Blevins. And that goes right through his stomach, right through his middle. And Andy Blevins falls to the ground. His wife is screaming. The kids are screaming. The babies are screaming. Everybody is going crazy. And his younger brother, he steps out with a pistol. And, the Commodore Perry Owens doesn't want to fire him, but he's like 15 years old, but he's got a pistol at his, fired right at his head. He shoots at the Commodore Perry Owens. He hits the horse that's behind the Commodore. He doesn't hit him. Owens fires back and gets the kill shot on another Blevins kid. And then a guy named Mose Roberts, who's a friend of the family. He tries to escape out the back window, and he's got a weapon, and he's trying to get away. And the Commodore sees him. He goes around the side, sees him go through the window, thinking he's coming around. Owens fires at him and kills him. So 3 people are killed. It's a bloodbath inside the Blevins house. Then the Commodore takes his shotgun and his sidearm and walks away. The town people are coming and saying, is everything okay? And he's like, yeah. And there is actually a trial for this. The Commodore Perry Owens has to go on trial for what happens at the Blevins house on the 4th September of 1887. And he is acquitted. He is let go. They believe he had the warrant. They believe he had the right to take out the 3 people that he took out. Unfortunately, Mary Blevins, the wife of Andy Blevins, thinks, of course, different the rest of her life, and she's laid to rest in the same cemetery as those 3 men are buried, and it's just on the other side of Holbrook. And we will go and visit that in just a second to show you where these 3 gentlemen are buried in the Holbrook Cemetery. Now, Mary Blevins, the wife, she's buried in that cemetery, but her gravesite is unknown. But they put a stone up next to her son's, saying that what had happened and that her grave is not marked in that cemetery. There are a few unmarked graves in the Holbrook Cemetery there. But that's the story of the Blevins house, really, and the Commodore Perry Owens, who we'll bring back up right here. There he is, the Commodore Perry Owens, and all his long hair and his cowboy hat, his gun, and looking smooth. They credit the Commodore Perry Owens with a lot. We'll get into it at another time. He's not credited. He's credited too much in his death than what he really accomplished. There are a lot of books written about him, that he was this great sheriff, this great shooter, this great man of the law. And there's another take on that. Not that he was a bad guy, but just like all the Earps and the Doc Holliday's, they accredit way too much to this guy in some books that aren't historically accurate. But that is the story. And since we've been on here for an hour and 3 minutes and going on an hour and 4 minutes, we might slow it up here and do the rest of it tomorrow. Kind of recap what we went through and then pick it back up Saturday. So I'm going to go over to the comment section, see if that's okay. If we go ahead and end that right now. Jump in the comment section and see if you can come back on. We'll talk about Giants tomorrow. We'll recap the 4 September 1887 shootout at the Blevins between the Commodore Perry Owens and the Blevins family. And we'll talk a little bit about the train depot, which they shipped off the Warriors of Geronimo in 1886, where the Commodore Perry Owens walked from to get to the Blevins house. You'll kind of see how close. It was very close to the train depot to the Blevins house. Yeah, and we recap standing on the corner in Winslow, Arizona. If more people are on that have been there before, and some of the other hotels that we went to in Winslow. I just want to come on tonight and kind of it's better for me to come on live and tell you all this stuff that I learned while I was there 24 hours to 48 hours ago, with the way that my brain is working right now, than to tell you a week or two later, and then I'm all over the place. I might have been all over the place tonight, but it's definitely more fresh in my brain right now than it will be next week sometime. So we'll come back on live on Saturday. We'll talk about the giants in the land that were found, a 12-foot giant out there near Casablanca, where this fort was at, that this historical marker was down in southeastern Arizona. We'll talk about that tomorrow. We'll also talk more about Holbrook. We'll talk about the Holbrook Cemetery tomorrow, where the Blevins is. Mose Roberts is buried. Mary Blevins is buried. They got a sign out there about the whole shootout right over that gravesite right there. The gravesite's pretty easy to find. We'll talk more about the Commodore Perry Owens and why he was hired as sheriff, the first sheriff of that county. We'll talk about Winslow and Holbrook a lot more, and we'll get into a lot more stuff. I'll be a lot more prepared because some reason I go live and some of these pictures just disappeared on me, which is not good. It's not professional, but who says that this podcast is professional, right? Let's just so let me just do a quick recap here, folks. Just quick recap. Here is the original Blevins house, built in 1885. Here is the train depot that Geronimo's, a lot of his warriors were shipped off in 1886 to Florida here after they surrendered. And Geronimo didn't leave out of this, but this is a historic Atlantic and Pacific Railroad depot that's still standing there today, where the Commodore Perry Owens walked over from to get to the Andy Blevins house. Another picture of the Andy Blevins house from the outside. Right in front of this, I don't have a better picture, but right in front of this is the historical marker for the Camel Corps of 1858 to 1859 for Lieutenant Beale, who came through there to make that wagon road with the camel expedition that it was an absolute success. Many books have been written about it. We'll also talk about High Jolly. High Jolly's buried out in Quartzsite, Arizona. We would have a long show tomorrow if I talk about everything I want to talk about Saturday night. So tell your friends and everybody. I will post it on the Arizona Timeless Tours Facebook page what time I'm going live. If you want to come over to the Arizona Timeless Tours Facebook page and tell me what time is best for you, do that. What time is best for family, friends, and people to come on over and watch it live? Let me know. If it's early, if it's the midday, if it's late, let me know what time is the best time. I know I head to church at 3 o'clock, so between 3 and 4:45 is not going to be the best of times because I will not be available. But anytime before 3 o'clock and anytime after 4:45 tomorrow afternoon, I can do the live. And I will get the book out on the Camel Corps and tell you about an unbelievable battle that took between camels and Apaches right there on the border of California and Arizona. It was unbelievable. I read this 400-page book for this event, and it wasn't till the end of the book. I should have just skipped to the end of the book, but I learned so much about the Camel Corps, so much about Lieutenant Whipple, so much about the railroad and how they figured out in the 35th parallel, all the politics. Like, look, we got next Tuesday is the big election day. They had a lot of politicking going on. And why? Why would they have a lot of politicking going on? Because everybody wants the railroad to run through their section of the country, and the 35th parallel wins out. So the Atlantic and Pacific Railroad win out there, and these towns like Holbrook are huge because of the railroad coming right through town, though it brings a lot of shady characters like the Hash Knife Cowboys. But we'll talk about that at another time. We will also talk about this. So this is the marker for the Giants. We will talk about that. Let's see here. Let me bring up this video. Hopefully this video works. You know what? I don't even think I'm going to. Yeah, you're going to hear me talking in the car, but this is what the scene looked like on the way home from Holbrook, about 25 miles outside of Holbrook, yesterday, and it went from nothing to this, and it was so slick, and people are sliding off the road and everything. I will remember the adventure back home, unfortunately, more than the Holbrook and Winslow adventure. But you'll probably hear my voice in this is just me and my buddy Scott talking while he's white knuckling it down here. But let's see if this will come up.
Later. It's amazing there's not been a plow on this side of the road at all. That road looks nice on that side.
It's the most wonderful time. Yeah, that folks. What do I got? As he was going like this, I was reaching out the window and hitting the. It went from 52 out of Holbrook to 27 degrees, and it was freezing up as it was coming down, and it was taking out everybody's windshield wipers. A lot of people pull aside just to get it off. My arm was long enough to pull and to get the windshield wipers and slap them a couple of times so you could actually see. But they were highway patrol in the middle. There was truck jackknife. The side coming up, they were 27 deep in cars completely stopped, and they weren't going to get going again with all the snow that was accumulating because of the backup. We saw about 5 cars stranded on both sides of the road. But we couldn't stop to help them because we would have been of no help. But hopefully everybody made it fine. There was no big crashes, but there were probably people stranded there for the night until the next morning to get out of there. But that was just ridiculous. Uh, Absolutely ridiculous. The road was so slick, we just sliding, the people in front sliding, trying to keep distance away from each other. Look, I'm from Ohio. I lived in Ohio for almost 21 years. I know how to drive in snow. I'm 50, folks. I moved away from Ohio when I joined the military and turned 21 at boot camp. Stayed in the military for 11 years. I was stationed in places like North Carolina and Northern Virginia, like in Alexandria, Virginia, right outside of Raleigh, North Carolina. We're all in these warm areas. Biloxi, Mississippi for 6 years. It's not doing a lot of snow, and a little bit in North Carolina, every now and then in Virginia. But they shut the cities down for that because they don't have the trucks to remove anything. But it's been a long time. I'm 50, so it's been over 26 years since I've driven in any kind of weather like that. And thank God my buddy was driving. As he was driving, I was praying. I was praying that everybody would get down safe, that vehicle would make it down. And it was a prayer of faith because I was like, had to have a faith of a mustard seed, Dean, because it doesn't look pretty right now. It doesn't look like you're going to make it down, but you have the gas and the heaters on, but we made it down. So praise be to God and answered prayer. Okay, folks, we're going to end it here. I thank you, everybody. We're going to have a great show tomorrow. We're going to recap all this, and we're going to get into a lot more of what I saw in Holbrook and Winslow and a couple of that Giants down there in southeastern Arizona. We're going to get into all that. I'm going to pull books out. We're going to be ready for the show tomorrow. I always do these off the cuff. They're not the most professional things in the world. We'll get the book out on the Camel Corps. We'll read about this unbelievable fight, this unbelievable thing that happened between these camels and over 100 Apache warriors. Who wins? During the very end of the Camel expedition, something had to happen to get the supplies to Lieutenant Beale. And there ain't no telephones and stuff like that. So they had to get through the Apaches. Unbelievable story. We might even start out the show with that. So get your family and friends, get people together. Again, go check out, I'll say this 100 times, the Arizona Times to his Facebook page. I will put the time. It's sometime tomorrow. I'll put the time. We're going to go live. So in case you want to come on over and check it out live and ask the questions. Dean, do you know the story fact as to how Fort Bowie was able to capture Geronimo's son? We know that Little Robe is buried at that Fort Bowie cemetery. Little Robe. He captured his family. We do know the story of that, and we can get into that tomorrow. But Little Robe caught the heart. Little Robe was just a couple years old. He had passed away of a disease, and he got along so good with the individuals and soldiers at the fort that he was buried in their cemetery. you can still go to Fort Bowie Cemetery today to see Little Robe, which is sad that he died so young. But that the soldiers liked him so much that they didn't bury him out somewhere else. And you're not going to find a lot of Native American burials because that's not the way they did things. KM, welcome, 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 KM. So this is the end of the show. We got a lot to talk about, though. We got a lot to talk about. We're an hour and 15 minutes in, and I'm beat. I'm red. Trying to get these red blood cells back up and going. So that's why we're going to stop it short. Even the lights, I got them turned down low, but it's like I'm like I've been sitting out in the sun. Appreciate everybody's support. Appreciate everyone's prayers. And we are cancer free, praise God. And we are going forward. And we've already made, when I said we, the Arizona Thomas Stewart's already been out to 2 locations. And we started the tours of Florence as of Monday the 1st. Get a hold of me at db7010@gmail.com. We're going to give away 1 free tour in November and 1 in December. So stay tuned for that and how you can get in the drawing for those free tours of Florence. Other than that, folks, because it is getting around that season, and I did go through the snow, and the Christmas music is already playing on the local channels, and we had it playing when we were rolling down through there. We'll go with the little country Christmas. Say thank you to everybody. See you tomorrow. We're gonna have a great show tomorrow. You don't want to miss it.